So good morning, everyone. My name is Gabriel Olivella. I'm the coordinator of programs and events at the BC Council for International Education, and I will be today's moderator. So BCCIE, for those of you who are new, is a provincial agency under the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Training, advancing the interests of international education throughout the entire international education sector, including K through 12, higher education, and the language sector. So thank you for joining us today on what promises to be an important presentation and some of BC's key international education partners in Latin America, and of course, 3 of our 4 partners of the Pacific Alliance. Today's webinar is co-hosted by BCCIE and Trade Commissioner's Service, Global Affairs Canada. So before we begin, before we get us started, and prior to introducing our presenters, it is important I acknowledge at BCCIE we live and work on the unceded traditional and ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And it is also important that I acknowledge that yesterday, September 30th, was declared by the Canadian government as a federal statutory holiday called the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation to recognize the violent legacy of residential schools. While it is important that as a nation and as a collective, we acknowledge the harm residential school survivors have endured, it is also important to acknowledge this day as an opportunity to listen and as a time to reflect on tangible steps towards reparation and redress to Indigenous peoples, especially if we acknowledge that many of our comforts are often created and maintained at their expense. So that's one more acknowledgement for today and for this week. Now, I would like us to move on to a few housekeeping items. The first one is that, as you are aware, as attendees, you will be muted throughout the presentation. If you have any comments or if you have any questions, we invite you to submit those through either the chat function or the Q&A function. Just want to remind everyone the main difference. The chat function is for comments and the Q&A function is really for questions, and that if you submit questions through the Q&A function, it really facilitates us during the moderation to prioritize the questions that you believe are more important. You also have the option of upvoting those questions or commenting on those questions if you want to expand farther on those. And then this is also an invitation. If you have questions on technical assistance, just submit those through the chat functions or the Q&A function. And myself or my colleague, Colleen, who is on the back end supporting me today, thank you, Colleen, will assist you with those questions. So now I'd like to move on to introducing our presenters for this morning. We have Magali Buffet, who is the Education Trade Commissioner at the Embassy of Canada to Colombia. We are also joined by Priscilla Lopez, Academic Affairs Coordinator at the Embassy of Canada to Chile. And we also have Diego Urbina Fletcher, Trade Commissioner at the Embassy of Canada to Peru. So please allow me to turn over the floor to our first presenter, Magali. And before we get started, I would just like to give a brief reminder that we invite you to submit your questions, but that we will take your questions at the end of the presentations during Q&A, and that you have all or some of you have already submitted questions during or in the registration form. So we will take those questions first, and then we will move on to the questions that you submit through the presentations. So without further ado, thank you so much, Magali, for joining us today, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel, and thank you, BCIE, for hosting this event and give us the opportunity to share information on our markets. And I'm also glad I see a lot of familiar names. So it's good to be here again. So today I have a short presentation with condensed information. So it's an update on Colombia. We did a similar webinar last year. So it's for the ones who attended this webinar, it's an update on this one. So Colombia, I will talk about recruitment and partnership. And that's the main overview. So Colombia remains the third largest education market for Canada in Latin America, just after Brazil and Mexico. It's ranked in the top 20 source countries of students to Canada. So that's a pretty good record. Colombia has now around 50 million inhabitants, so that's not a big country. And it's the fourth fastest growing emerging market in the world. And I wanted to bring some numbers on study permits, just to show that right now the recovery is underway. We have 3,215 study permit issued as of July 2021. I included a link. It's open data from IRCC. So that could be a useful tool for you if you want to have a look at the open data that is available. And I compared this number to 2019, which was the latest normal year. And we have surpassed the number of study permits processed. So my colleagues, IRCC colleagues are very busy right now. And in terms of language learning, according to Languages Canada, Colombia is source country number 6 for English and for French. So that's also a good record for Colombia. I'm going to continue about recruitment, trends and opportunities. You're all in the recruitment or in the partnership area of your institutions, and you know that the pandemic has obliged us to do things differently, obviously. And now in Colombia, and I guess in other markets too, there's a need for innovative methods of recruitment. Students are waiting for more personalized interactions. You have to be creative, and I guess it's here to stay. So that's something that came up in Colombia, obviously. Also, something of interest, we are seeing that a lot of institutions they've been recruiting in Colombia for many years. They are positioned, and now they have direct representatives living and working in Colombia, sometimes covering only the local market, but also for the region. So that's another aspect that is growing. A lot of direct representatives are based in Colombia, and they do actively participate to all the events that we organize, or events that are available for recruitment. In terms of marketing, maybe that's not new to you, but Colombians are highly social. Digital promotion and engagement is very important. Some institutions have done specific digital marketing campaigns, and it's proven to be very successful. And also, students here, when I mean personalized interaction, here is the use of WhatsApp is one way to connect very personally with students. Also, there are some opportunities and maybe also a different way to engage with your local education agents, institutions. So, you know, it's a new trend. You have to be very engaged with the agents. They get a lot of invitations to represent institutions all over the world. So if you are strategic and you do engage very actively with them, then you can have maybe better results in the medium term. Also, Colombia is a price-sensitive market, and even more now with after, well, not really, with the pandemic, the economic situation is difficult for many people. So, but still, for the ones who are thinking about studying abroad, studying in Canada, they have postponed their plans, and they are now looking at being admitted. So if in your campaigns or digital marketing material, you can mention some aspects about tuition discounts that you can offer for the local public, or scholarships. It's important to put that message forward. Now I go to partnerships, trends and opportunities. I wanted to remind you, for the ones who don't know, also just maybe mention a few existing partnerships that are important, and it's at the BC and also national level. So the Ministry of Education of British Columbia and its counterpart in Colombia signed an agreement, bilateral agreement, a few years ago, 2016-17, and sometimes not a lot of institutions are aware of this MOU. It's in place, it's been renewed. So there are some opportunities of participation to the international education mobility programs that are coordinated by the ministry, and also I understand that BCCIE also is involved. So that's something in place that can be used. Also, in Colombia, we have a BC offshore school located in Medellin. If some of you want to connect with this school, I can help. And at a larger level, at national level, federal level, Universities Canada last year signed an MOU with its counterpart ASCUN, and recently MyTax and MinCiencias, the new Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, signed an agreement, and for the first time, Colombian students are applying to the Global Research Internships program. So that's also something in place that could be interesting for you. In terms of opportunities, so those MOUs can help, and we see that Canadian curriculum is interesting for local schools, but also for local universities. They are now, with the virtual, after a year and a half of pandemic, everyone online, they feel that it's easier to do now and maybe more open. So that's a new possibility. Virtual mobility, collaborative online learning as well. At K-12 level, connected classroom projects are, some local schools are interested in doing exchange on specific topics. So that's also something that can be developed. And finally, agreements with local public and private funding institutions. Here I have more information on that. In Colombia, we have ICETEX. It's the student loans agency. They provide funding for Colombian students to study in Colombia, but also they manage all the international scholarships. And now some Canadian institutions have specific agreements with ICETEX. ICETEX can provide some co-funding in some specific areas. So that's something to have in mind if you want to develop maybe agreements, specific agreements to attract Colombian students. The Ministry of Science, it used to be called Conciencias, now it's a ministry. They have funding available, and it's always under loan scholarship schemes with Canadian institutions. We did a webinar with them a few months ago, and some Canadian universities have agreements in place with MinCiencias. So that's another aspect if your institution is interested in attracting PhD students, that would be with MinCiencias. And finally, Colfuturo, it's a private, not-for-profit organization that provides loan scholarships to study at the best and top-ranking institutions worldwide. And it's a very selective program. So students get a loan, and when they come back to Colombia under certain circumstances, they get a scholarship. So also you can have specific agreements with Colfuturo, and Colfuturo also runs a language program. And I know, for example, in BC, the University of Victoria has a very interesting agreement with Colfuturo, and they've seen a lot of students going through this agreement. And I wanted to provide briefly information that has been shared by my colleagues, IRCC colleagues. I would like to mention that IRCC in Bogota is also covering Ecuador. So the study permits and visas for Ecuador are also processed here in Colombia, in Bogota. So what we do with my colleagues in terms of positioning Canada as a study destination is that we regularly do virtual info sessions open to the public. We publish information for registration on our social media, and it's proven to be very successful during the pandemic. We are doing a session every 2 weeks, and we have a lot of students, a lot of interesting candidates that participate to our sessions, and it's always done with IRCC, so they get all the information directly from them. We also do agent workshops. So the agent have a direct channel of communication with us and with IRCC. So we always keep them updated about new regulations, information. We always reply to their questions. So that's another type of event that we have developed in Colombia. Also, I wanted to mention, and maybe you already know, that Colombia is in the list of the student direct stream. So that's a new, maybe speedier process for certain types of students to process for study permits processing. And also, right now, the processing times are so my colleagues mentioned that you should recommend students to apply at least 2 months before the start of classes. That's the standard for IRCC. And it's my almost last slide. I wanted to mention a few events that we will be participating in the next few months. So we'll be participating to the Conference of the Americas in International Education. We'll have a B2B session. We'll have the opportunity to meet if you're interested, and I can also help connect with the local Colombian institutions if you're interested. We will be, as EduCanada, we will be participating to an in-person recruitment fair at graduate studies level in November. So it will be the first in-person fair since the beginning of the pandemic. And in November, we'll have a Colombian pavilion and delegation to the CBIE. Also, we'll have opportunities to connect with you on that occasion. And maybe just a heads up, it's not confirmed yet, but we will probably organize an EduCanada only, coordinated by us, by the embassy, in recruitment fair and networking session in Colombia in the spring 2022. And I share my my data, my email, and I also share the social media that we have in English here. at the embassy. We do publish a lot of information on what we do. So if you want to follow us, you can use those. So thank you, and I'll pass it on to Gabriel.
Thank you so much, Magali, for the presentation. I see there's a couple of questions that are trickling in, so I just want to remind everyone that we will take all the questions for the end, because I know most of the questions are relevant also to the 3 markets. So now I would like to move on to our next country, which is Chile, and we have Priscila Lopez, who will give us a presentation on Chile. So thank you so much, Priscila. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Gabriel, and everyone here present today. So I also have a presentation with all the updates and trends in the Chilean market. So let's start. So a little overview of our country. As you can see, we're a very long and thin country in Latin America. We're a very stable economy. In Latin America, we have been affected by the pandemic as well. Our economy has been impacted. However, the impact has not been as high as we expected in 2020. And there's actually a high growth of the economy expected between 10.5 and 11.5%, according to the Central Bank of Chile. So that's a very positive scenario. We also seen in numbers that we have seen an increase in study permits for Canada. In 2020, we have had a very low number, 435 study permit going to Canada. And now until the second quarter of 2021, we already have 505 study permits. So we're expecting to see an even higher number than 2019. So that's a pretty good also number for us, and we expect it to continue growing. Talking about a little bit about the population here in Chile and about the country, we have a very a population of 14.63% of young people between the ages of 15 and 24 years of age, and between the ages of 25 and 54, it's 42.95, which is a target audience, and most of the students interested in going to Canada are between these ages. So these are our target audience for promotion. We're a very centralized country. The capital of Santiago, which is the middle of Chile, concentrates over 40% of the population. But there are other strategic areas of Chile where there's potential for recruitment. Mostly we can name Valparaíso, Antofagasta, Concepción, and Puerto Montt. And these are cities that have also high concentration of the population and very good higher education institutions as well. So we have a lot of private institutions at the university and school level, and they have some of them prices that are very similar to some higher educations to Canada. So it's a very competitive country regarding prices, and it's very price sensitive. Also, key detail here that our school year runs from March to December. Another important thing to mention is that we have a very strong middle class. 43% of the households in Chile are considered middle class. And regarding some specifics about the visa processing in Chile, we do not require a visa to go to Canada for up to 6 months. We require an ETA, and we can apply for study permits online. And we have also direct flights from Toronto through Air Canada. The route was suspended, but we will be reactivated in November 2021. We have some opportunities for scholarships that are offered by the government of Chile and also for the government of Canada. As you all well know, we are eligible for the ILAP scholarship, which provide funding for a semester in Canada for 4 to 6 months at the graduate and undergraduate level. But we also have scholarships available from the government of Chile, which are very good opportunities for students to pursue masters and PhDs in several countries. Canada takes some of these scholarships every year, but we anticipate also the numbers growing because of some agreements. Caldo, for example, has an agreement with the Ministry of Education for the UNIT scholarships to provide domestic fees for the students applying for these scholarships. But we also have two other fundings that are very, very interesting. One is Técnicos para Chile. This this scholarship provides funding for a full program at the technical level in several countries. Canada is one of the countries that is eligible for this program. They have two colleges eligible or that are undertaking this program. But unfortunately, these programs this year and the past year, of course, were suspended through because of the pandemic. We have heard unofficially, though, that these fundings will be activated in 2022, again, because they're very important funding for those students that are accomplished and they want to pursue studies overseas. We also have, we are eligible as well for the International Experience Canada program. This is very important as well. This is a program that allows young people between the ages of 18 and 35 to go to Canada and to work for up to a year and to study for up to 6 months. So this has also become very popular among Chileans because this allows them to go and, for example, get better skills in language or to work and get to know a little bit about the working environment in Canada. So about some trends and opportunities, and also going to mention the challenges, but regarding the trends, Embassy of Canada is the main actor for promotion of Canadian institutions. We're very open business environment for developing projects with Canadian institutions and with businesses here in Chile. Regarding the promotion, as we said before, we're very active in promotion. There are education fairs that you can participate, 2 or 3 major recruitment events fair this year. On the 5th of October, we will be participating on the FPB Study in Canada Fair. But there are other recruitment events. Of course, many of them have become virtual because of the pandemic. We still do not have on site any in-person fairs in the coming months, but virtual events have been a very good opportunity for continuing the recruitment of programs in Chile. Of course, we have social media channels that are very active. We have a Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages that we use for promotion of programs and opportunities. But of course, agents in Chile play a very key role and very important decision-making process of students. So I encourage you to also be strategic and try to reach agencies and build agreements with them because they are also very active in promotion on their own. Of course, on-site recruitment is highly recommended. However, we recommend that since the travel advisory is still in place and travel to outside of Canada is still not recommended, we encourage you to postpone your plans rather than canceling. Chile is also it's a country where in-person events and are always highly attended by students. So we hope that in 2022 we'll have the opportunity to have more in-person events. So we encourage you to explore and to try to attend those kind of events in the near future. The preferred language promotion is Spanish mostly or English, but Chile, the education, it's a top priority for the Chilean government. So there's currently a reform that has allowed for lower income students to access to free higher education in Chile. In most universities have this benefit that is called gratuidad in Chile. So this is opening the doors for many students that were not being able to afford private higher education or weren't able to attend because of academic performance to the state universities, to open the education opportunities for them. And of course, internationalization opportunities are open for them as well during the university studies. So regarding Chilean higher education institutions, they are very keen to explore and establish new partnerships with Canadian higher education institutions because they recognize the quality and the interest of Canadian education institutions. So there are actors that are very active in the market, like Caldo Consortium, and they're always trying to encourage and build new agreements with higher education institutions in Chile. But as we said before, there are factors that determine the decision, the choice of destination for students in Chile. Most of these factors are language, cost, programs, immigration opportunities, but there are still a lot of opportunities to establish this kind of agreements with Chilean education institutions to, of course, for programs, joint programs, but also for teaching the Canadian curriculum in local institutions. The challenges that I can mention, of course, is the shift in priorities for local funding. For example, the ANID scholarship programs have been suspended for 2021. The impact, because even though we've seen a growth in the economy, there's still a very high impact that the pandemic has provoked, closing of business and many people having uncertainty or have they lost their jobs. So there'll be a period of recovery post-pandemic. And of course, we as education destination, we have many competitors that are active in the market, even though many of them have remained their close of borders. And the most active competitors are the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. Regarding another challenge is Canada's weaknesses. Sometimes we don't see many scholarships available for Chilean students, which are very attractive for them, or discounts of opportunities, and perhaps some lack of reciprocity. Some institutions have a very big outbound mobility programs, but they don't see many students coming to Chile. So that's another weakness as well. Regarding language programs, the weakness still remains for the French language. Most of the students in Chile prefer to learn English language programs, and of course the sensibility of the market is another challenge. The market is very price sensitive, and students always seek for the better opportunities in the market. They seek for the better opportunities to undertake a program overseas at the better prices, and of course the quality. Another challenge of the pandemic, of course, is the lack of in-person events, because students here in Chile value face-to-face contact. So again, it's very important to, during this period where we're recovering or starting to see the last of the pandemic, hopefully, that we try to find new agreements through agents, because they play a very important role. And finally, the last challenge is the perception of Canada. Still, they see other destinations as more attractive, and in Canada, there are not that much knowledge of the advantages of Canadian education and the benefits for students who go to Canada, like the postgraduate work permit, the spousal work permit, or possibilities for immigration. Regarding language programs, I'll go through each one of the sectors. The US, the UK, and France have their own institutes here in Chile. We have also local institutes, more than 90 language institutes in Chile. Most of them are located in the Santiago area. However, the quality is medium standards. Chileans do not tend to get to a very good level of English undertaking classes locally. So that's why undertaking language programs overseas is very attractive for Chileans. Of course, during the pandemic, there have institutes have developed this hybrid mode or sometimes completely online courses, which have been attractive for Chileans to improve their language skills. But there's still some very active recruitment by countries such as Australia, the UK, and the US. Of course, the main actors for promotion of these programs are the education agents, but we have some opportunities also to build programs or partnerships regarding English language training through higher education institutions. So regarding colleges, technical institutes, and SEGEPs, this is another sector that has been gaining popularity very slowly in Chile. We have 44% of total enrollment for higher education institutions going to technical studies in Chile. It's a priority for the current government. They're actually building some institutions called Centro de Formación Técnica Regional, located in targeted regions of Chile to build programs that are aligned with the needs of the regions. So that's a very good news. So the possibilities for agreements here in Chile are with the biggest and the top technical institutions, which are in Chile, DUOC, INACAP, IEP, and the Instituto Profesional Santo Tomás. But students in Chile are keen to pursue technical studies in Canada more and more. They are seeing opportunities overseas because of the prices, because of the less duration than a university program, and of course, because they see this as a path for obtaining the permanent residency in Canada. Regarding the university study, this remains being the most popular sector for Chileans when they pursue studies in Canada. We have over 120 current institutional agreements between Canadian and Chilean universities, which permits Chilean students to go to Canada, for example, and apply for the ELAP scholarship. There's a growing potential for undergraduate level still. Chilean students still do not pursue full studies at the undergraduate level in other countries because of the population of people at the age of undergraduate programs. They are still most of them living at their parents' house, so they tend to go and pursue graduate studies overseas rather than undergraduate. But it's a sector that is growing, and we see a tendency here as well, but also at the technical level. The still highest potential to pursue studies overseas and in Canada remain at the master's and PhD levels. As I mentioned before, we have scholarship available like the ANIT scholarships. The universities in Chile are very keen to seek mobility and research collaboration with Canadian universities. They're also always participating at the events we organize and they attend, and they also pursue opportunities for collaboration with the Canadian universities, for example, participating at B2Bs, at webinars, etc. Also, MBAs are very in high demand in Chile. We usually, pre-pandemic, we used to have at least 4 MBA fairs held yearly in Chile. Candidates are very, very interested because of the competitiveness of the market to pursue this type of studies abroad. So it's a very strategic and potential for Canadian institutions to pursue this kind of recruitment here in Chile as well. And of course, engineering programs at the university level remain the most popular. We have very similar industries with Canada, for example, in the areas of forestry, environmental, agriculture, and ethics. Some institutional agreements that are currently undergoing in Chile, and with, as I said before, there are opportunities to pursue agreements with directly with higher education institutions, but there are also some opportunities that have arisen, for example, with MyTax, which is working currently and is building the last details to have an agreement with CRUCH, which is the Council of Rectors of Chilean Universities, for their Global Link Research Internship and the Global Link Research Award, and also for the Accelerate International Programs. CALDO Consortium, as I mentioned before, has a current agreement with ANID, which is the National Association for Research and Development, for providing domestic fees for the students who are awarded these scholarships. And there are also other opportunities for agreements, for example, for capacity building and consultative services. One example is Fanshawe College, which has recently built an agreement with the Universidad de los Lagos for a program called Integrated Model for Engaging External Stakeholders, which is basically a consultancy services for the Technical Institute of Universidad de los Lagos for gaining new skills and to build opportunities in the labor market for their students. So Chile education during COVID, very briefly, the Chile international border is currently open. So that means foreigners can enter Chile currently. Of course, it's necessary to have a PCR and have a quarantine of 5 days. And the economy again has been impacted. However, we see a recovery, a steady recovery in the next years, because the government has implemented measures that have mitigated the impact of the pandemic, which have been rather successful. Most of Chilean cities have returned to a normal scenario. However, the measures for personal care are still in place. We're required to wear a mask in open spaces mostly, and there's a limited capacity for restaurants, malls, etc. Of course, most of the events, as I mentioned before, have been suspended. However, we have education events that are taking place on an online mode, as Magali mentioned before. Calle Conference, which Chile is the host this year, will be taking place between October 18th, there's a mistake there. Well, the actual conference will be taking place from the 19th, but we'll have a previous day before on the 18th, where we'll have a series of activities, a B2B and market intelligence presentation for the participated Canadian institutions in the conference. One detail that is very also important to mention is that Chile is very advanced in the vaccination process for COVID-19. Most of the population, over 80%, has been vaccinated with the 2 doses, and Chile is currently implemented a process of a 3rd dose for the population, just a reinforcement dose. So despite this and this new normal scenario, the education remains in most institutions at the online, on an online mode. Some institutions have implemented a hybrid mode, but still a decision of the parents and the student themselves whether they want to take in-person classes. So they have, for this year and the remainder of this year, this will be the way the classes will be taking place. So most of the mobility has been canceled, but regarding education in Canada, the VAC in Santiago is open. Applications are being submitted online though. Just same as Magali mentioned, it's important to be aware of the processing times for study permit application. In Chile, the processing times is of 12 weeks at least. So it's important to be aware of this and try to apply beforehand. So the other impacts of course, the family income, students that were going to or had some budget allocated for international studies had to rethink that and perhaps postpone their studies. And of course, the budget cuts for scholarships have had an impact during COVID. Some opportunities, many digital promotion and other models for recruitment are still in place, such as virtual fairs. There are some funding options available that are suspended but not canceled. This means they will be retaken at some point, but the market's still price sensitive. The flexible and entry policies for international students in Canada are an asset, and agents are very aware of this and grateful, and they can continue promoting Canada. And so for some of them, Canada has become a priority market for promotion because the borders are, because Canada is open to receive international students despite the pandemic, because other countries have completely closed their borders. There remain opportunities for strategic and collaborative partnership with education agents, and other models for education are also very, very attractive for Chilean institutions, hybrid models and tailor-made programs. Of course, the opportunities remain open for collaboration with Chilean partners. So this has been my presentation. Thank you so much. I don't know if I respected the time, if I pass a little bit. This is my email in case you have any questions, and thank you so much for your attention again.
Thank you so much, Priscilla, for your presentation. And lastly, we will move on to Peru. Diego Urbina, Trade Commissioner in Peru, will provide us with some updates, trends, and information. So thank you so much, Diego, for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Just as Gabriel said, I cover Peru, and from Lima, we also cover Bolivia. This presentation will be focused in Peru, but in case you have any questions about Bolivia, happy also to answer them. So Peru has maintained a robust economic performance over the last 20 years. This has resulted in a large and growing segment of the population self-identifying as middle class. And many of those Peruvians have looked to invest in international education opportunities for themselves and for their families. However, it is currently one of the most affected countries in Latin America in terms of the economic downturn due to COVID. We had a drop in the GDP of 11% last year. This, in addition to the political instability since the new government took office in July this year, has had an important impact on the family economy and the public funds. So this has in turn resulted in some level of uncertainty about the future of international education. Now, although much of the economic activity in Peru is concentrated in the capital, in Lima, there is increasing potential for recruitment and student services, education services in other regions of the country, in cities such as Arequipa, Piura, Trujillo, which would be the largest ones. There are promising opportunities for post-secondary degrees due to the growing demand in Peru for workers with relevant professional and technical degrees. There is also a growing demand for language training and exchange programs at the K-12 level, which is something that is rather new. It has been evolving in the past few years. And Peruvians also perceive education in Canada as a pathway for immigration, especially now since all this political and economic instability. We've seen lots of people interested in studying in Canada because the country offers the possibility of an easier immigration pathway. When we ask potential students why do they choose Canada, they say it's because of its high education standards, its competitive value, the geographic proximity, and the level of personal security. So those would be how they rank the Canada as a study destination. And the Peruvian school year runs from March through December with a 2-week break in July. Now, most relevant influencers are parents and education agents. That's for the K-12 through the undergraduate level, and peers and industry for graduate studies. Education agents are currently teleworking because of the COVID restrictions. It's a sector that has been heavily impacted, but their motto throughout the pandemic has been postpone your studies rather than canceling, and that's what we've seen in the most cases. Direct recruitment is important in Peru as in Latin America. I think that personal close relationship is something that students appreciate. And virtual events are also something that has been going up through increasing during the pandemic. Students at private IB or international baccalaureate schools are a good target for recruitment because they have a better level of English. They have also a better financial situation. So it's something that it's information that we can provide to you so you can do your recruitment initiatives. We've seen also that Peruvian universities and colleges are very much open to signing student or teacher mobility partnerships, joint collaboration partnerships, and such. we see strong competition from the US, UK, Australia, and France. And during the COVID pandemic, what we've seen is, as I said, a preference to postpone the plans rather than canceling them. Peru is a very fast growing market in terms of student recruitment. We are actually the second fastest growing market in Latin America after Colombia, having doubled our number of study permit holders in the last 4 years. We have not only increased in the number of students, but also in interinstitutional engagement, where we've seen an exponential growth of partnerships. We started with 15 partnerships between Canadian and Peruvian education institutions in 2012, and we have close to 100 this year. There are also several scholarship programs that Peruvian students can apply for studies abroad. Maybe the most important one is the Beca Presidente de la República, which every year gives around 100 and 150 postgraduate scholarships. That's for the universities that are ranked between the top 400 in the QS ranking. The same applies for the Science and Technology Council and some scholarships for public servants. During COVID, what we've seen is that the education sector transitioned at all levels to online learning. In fact, Peru is probably one of the slowest countries in returning back to school. We just started this month at the K-12 level with semi-presential classes, not all, some days of the week. Universities, colleges, it's still online. And it will remain like that until March next year, probably, when the education calendar year starts. The number of commercial flights has been reduced also. The Air Canada flight, the direct one from Lima to Toronto, should resume later this year. Many Peruvian students have begun classes this fall in Canada. So we've seen a really high number of student applications this year. It has almost doubled. So if we take out the gap because of COVID, what we will see is that this trend that we saw of Peruvians going to Canada will probably continue at an even faster pace. Well, international summer mobility programs, that's our summer. So January, February 2022 have been canceled because classes will remain virtual. But the visa application center is currently open in Peru. The times for study permit issuance is around 60 days if the student presents all their application complete, right? Their biometrics, there's the medical exams and everything. It should take 60 days. In terms of some market entry considerations, cost is very important. This is a cost-sensitive market, and we have the advantage that they see Canada as a cost-competitive destination when compared to the UK, Australia, or the US. Scholarships it's something that we always get asked by potential students. So in case you have any scholarship, partial scholarship programs, it's always good to mention it during your pitch, even if it's not applicable for all the students, just for them to learn that they have that opportunity. It's important. Visiting the market, I would say that it's always good, but we have discovered in Peru that virtuality does work well. So we are seeing more and more interest from students in participating in virtual fairs, in virtual presentations. So I would say that we might be moving towards a more virtual environment. That also including for direct recruitment. Agents are good partners. We work very closely with them. We have at least one session a year with all education agents interested in the Canadian market, so they know how it works, they know the visa process, they represent a good number of Canadian universities and colleges, and that's also in contact information that we can provide if you want to get engaged with the education agents here. The EduCanada Fair that we still don't know if it will take place later this year is a very popular event, but even if we don't hold the EduCanada Fair, there are several events now all virtual that are good opportunities to present your programs, like the FPP Fair or the Feria de Educación Internacional. We're currently during fair season, so we have many events at least once every week around this time of the year. And we can help you organize, of course, missions to the region and visits to schools and universities if that's something that you would be interested in the later time. That's basically it. I didn't want to keep it too long, so we can have enough time to answer any questions that you might have.